The United States and the Taliban are set to resume talks on Afghanistan. The U.S. Special Representative Zalmay Khalilzad has arrived in Doha for what is going to be the 8th round of talks aimed at restoring peace in Afghanistan. Ahead of those talks, Khalilzad tweeted saying that the two parties were pursuing a peace agreement and not a withdrawal agreement. He also made it clear that the United States' presence in and withdrawal from Afghanistan are both conditional. U.S. President Donald Trump has flagged progress in the peace talks. He said that the two parties have made a lot of progress and are still in talks. However, Trump said that the U.S. could win over Afghanistan in 2 to 3 days' time, but was not looking to kill 10 million people.
With respect to Afghanistan, we've made a lot of progress. We're talking, but we've also made a lot of progress. We're reducing it. We've been there for 19 years. We're really serving as policemen. We could win Afghanistan in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days if we wanted, but I'm not looking to kill 10 million people.
Now, why exactly are these peace talks so important for the U.S. or, for that matter, specifically for President Donald Trump? Trump has promised to pull out American troops from Afghanistan. That would end America's nearly 18-year-long involvement in the war-torn country. For this, they need peace on the ground. Taliban holds a major stake in power. Washington is looking to sign a deal with the Taliban by the 1st of September. According to reports, the U.S. could propose a reduction in the number of troops stationed on the ground during the talks. But in turn, the United States will ask Taliban to disassociate themselves from the Al-Qaeda. WION has been learning that the proposal is to reduce troops by 8,000 to 9,000. The remaining troops will be pulled out gradually in phases. The U.S. currently has an estimated 14,000 personnel in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, there are widespread concerns among the Afghans. They fear that the United States' rush to pull out could see the Taliban return with some semblance of power. The Taliban had recently signed on a rather vague pledge to reduce civilian casualties, but the violence has continued unabated regardless. And our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik has been tracking the very latest. Anas, is going to be the 8th round of talks. Do you think that a lot of those sticky issues that have governed the 7 rounds so far still remain? A lot of them still need to be worked out. And what are the conditions that, according to you, could be placed by either side?
Well, absolutely. This is the 8th round of Taliban Doha talks. Taliban and US talks have formally commenced in Doha, and the first session has also concluded. It lasted for about three and a half hours. It started at about 12:30 p.m. Doha time, and it ended at about 4 p.m. There was a small lunch break as well. Now, that was basically to revise what they had agreed upon in the 7th session that was last month. Now, by and large, this round of talks would focus on a withdrawal agreement that has been that bone of contention. Remember, the Taliban have been asking the United States to pull out of the Afghan territory at the earliest, whereas the United States have been saying that they need some time in order to pull out, and a proper, graceful and gradual pull out. Now, what we can confirm that the American administration will be offering Taliban that they can pull out 5,000 to 6,000 troops immediately, reducing the number of troops that are the US troops that are in Afghanistan to about 8,000 to 9,000. Remember, currently there are about 14,000 US troops that are stationed in Afghanistan. In return, the US would be asking a guarantee that the Taliban would disassociate themselves from Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups that are a threat or a potential threat to the states, to the security of the United States of America. Additionally, the US would also be asking the Taliban that they need to give up violence or that violent approach, particularly that has been damaging or giving harm to the innocent people of Afghanistan. So by and large, that would be the main focus of discussion during these round of talks. They have been scheduled for about 7 days. The hotel has been booked for about 7 days. They were earlier scheduled to be held at Taliban's political office in Doha, but then they moved out to a prominent hotel in Doha, Qatar. The hotel room has been booked for 7 days. Now, Zalmay Khalilzad, who was in Islamabad yesterday for about 2 days, he has tweeted that they are not negotiating for a withdrawal agreement. In fact, they are negotiating for a peace agreement, and that peace agreement also calls for an intra-Afghan dialogue, because unless an intra-Afghan dialogue is done, the Taliban would not accept the legitimacy of any government, regardless if it's elected or if it's imposed. The Taliban, in fact, they say that the current government of the Ghani regime, that is a national unity government, they call that particular government as an imposed regime, and therefore they refuse to sit with them. Now, as a reason of that solution that they have found is that they would now be sitting with the Ghani government, but not as the government itself, not as a stakeholder, but just as another party, as a political party. So that would be seriously considered as well, whether the US would be able to convince the Taliban to give up the armed struggle against the Ghani government, against the government that is in place, and in fact sit down with them and agree upon a power sharing formula, because a lot of that has to do with the money that is involved in Afghanistan as well. Lots of issues that would be on the table, but first and foremost and immediate would be that withdrawal agreement, to which the Taliban and US both are hinting that there is significant progress on.